not.
Okay, so we're going to discuss today's implementation and follow-up. So we implemented the lesson over the last 2 class sessions, and so we're going to discuss how it's gone, the criteria required for session number 3, and determine next steps. So we'll go to this page. Wait, where are you? Here we go. Okay, so we'll update our planning doc again. All right. So basically, our instructional goal was to increase student independence, collaboration with one another, and overall engagement. And we used the Jigsaw strategy in order to meet this goal. So those were our goals. Okay, so criterion 1, teacher implements the strategy or tool. So we did that. We worked on that together. So just to recap, we divided 6 students into 2 groups. Each group had some videos to watch and some activities to go with the videos to help with comprehension. And then following that, they are going to complete the Venn diagram, comparing and contrasting concepts from the Crucible and McCarthyism on a Venn diagram using Google Slides. Okay, so that was the whole gist of the project. Now, data is gathered by teacher or coach in class or while doing video on student progress toward the goal. So let's talk about their progress, the student progress. So I will start by saying that in terms of engagement, I feel like I think they were engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know,
some more so than others.
Yeah, some more so than others for sure. However, the material was too high. So the materials that I chose for my group were too high, and you were talking about how you felt they were too advanced for your group.
Just a little bit. I think those were a little bit easier to understand, but they definitely took a lot of re-explanation, and you know, I would stop it and say, okay, so which I do that well, you know, each act. Even though we know the characters, we know the background, we know all that, it's still necessary for me to stop and say, okay, so what's going on right here is, and I've even asked them that, is that preferable or does that distract you? And they say no, like in other words, they know they need that.
Okay, well that's
so,
good.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we've been doing with these videos that we've been watching, you know.
Good.
So yeah.
So we each had some different activities, but talk to me about the highlighting activity for the Salem Witch Trials video versus the graphic organizer activity. Was there
graphic
one?
Organizer, this graphic organizer. Yeah, well they did, they have, so they did write down, we did not, well actually we did, because some of them even said after the video, so they did, are these their papers? Because they did,
maybe Delia didn't write on
she may not have.
Or maybe, no, we just did it. They did it on the wrong one.
Okay.
It's fine.
So, yeah, okay, so yeah, I said it's the last page.
No, they're fine.
But it's the same page.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, because Jeremiah did too.
Okay, so how much like prompting did you have to do for them to write stuff down? Because I had to do a lot of prompting for my group. Or were they able to kind of get
Yeah, they were.
stuff?
Now, we did talk a lot about it, and in some ways, without them even realizing that I gave them some answers. Maybe we just talked about it, and the answers were embedded in it.
Okay.
And I'm like, hopefully you're hearing me. And some of them did, and some of them didn't. But they didn't. I mean, like, look.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so you didn't have to write this on the board or anything?
No.
Oh, wow, so they wrote that on their own?
Yeah.
That's actually great.
Yeah, they did. They wrote them all on their own.
Okay. Because my students, I had to actually write it, and they had to copy. It was too much. It was too much.
Well, and the sad thing is I would, in some ways, I would say you had the brighter kids.
Yeah, I know.
More capable kids.
I know, but I think because the concepts, like, I don't know if it was, like, especially on the McCarthyism, which we didn't have to write anything, I just had them underline, but they didn't even know what to underline. They couldn't differentiate between what was important information, like what would be relevant to our goal and not relevant to our goal. So it was like,
and I did repeat that a lot. Like, remember what we're doing, and I just kept saying, like, with the third piece, you know, I don't even know if that third piece is on, I don't think the third piece is on here, but that we're gonna be doing, you know,
Yeah,
the Venn
the Venn
diagram.
yeah. So the Venn diagram is in here, obviously. So it looks like you got.
I mean, nobody got to this part where they started writing things.
Okay, I think
That's what I was asking you, did you get to this point?
Yeah, we got to it, but I think Isaiah was typing on this one, and he should have been typing on this one. So
Yes,
finally
we
he
did not
started
get to
typing
that
on this
point,
one.
but this is as far as we
Okay.
got, but we did discuss it.
Yeah,
And
that's
they each
fine.
shared something from each box.
And here, when we did get to this point, I still had to give them a lot of hand holding. Like, okay, so let's talk, you know, they were able to come up with the ideas. Like I would say, okay, give me 5 facts, or, you know, tell me about the Salem witch trials. Tell me about the Crucible. What happened, you know? And this was after watching the videos and after going over the transcripts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to come up with these ideas, but I needed to help them with like the wording a bit, and like just so it was like, you know, grammatically correct. But of course that's that's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't want to capitalize, or, you know,
they
Shakira
don't.
didn't capitalize John. I was like, that's a proper noun.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I expected that, of course. But it was just, you know, they just needed that support. So they were able to kind of, with my asking a lot of like guiding questions, they were able to recognize the fact that each group was accusing people of being something they were not.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was after like a lot of discussion and like, after watching both videos, you know, so it wasn't something that they, like, even when we were watching the videos on the video on the Crucible, I was like, okay, so let's think about how this could relate to McCarthyism, and that just was like way over their head. So yeah, these concepts, but I'm also like, you know, I also think, when you're talking about teaching really high, I also think it's good to expose them to like the higher level stuff,
have to.
but
Whatever takeaways they have.
right, but again, it's like, you know, you also want them to like be able to like synthesize the information and remember it from one day to the next.
And that's where the problem lies.
Yeah.
But
that's just a cognitive barrier they have, you know, I mean.
Like, this is the first year I've been wanting to for years, actually tie McCarthyism into my small group classes, and I never have, because what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But when when we were talking about doing this, I thought, oh, that would be a perfect way to do it, because it's just so fascinating to me how history repeats itself.
Exactly.
And so.
But I think we still are gonna meet that goal of tying. I think they'll understand it, just maybe not on the same level you and I do.
Right.
You know,
Well,
I mean, obviously it's like.
I think that will be over expectation on our part if that were the case.
Yeah, exactly. And so you haven't been able to get to these videos yet, right? Or were you?
Well, we did not discuss them.
Okay.
Because they said, well, no, we're group 1, we don't watch those.
Oh, okay.
And I said, I'm pretty sure we do, even though you're right, it does say group 2.
Yeah.
We're group 1, but I said, let's just go ahead and watch them anyway.
No, oh, you were group 2.
No, we were group 1 on the board.
I know, but that's wrong.
Okay. That could have been part of the.
Wait, did you not?
And I said, well, no,
did
look,
you not watch these? Did you not
we
watch
did watch
these?
those two.
Okay, good. Then you're good. You're good.
But then I was
Okay.
like, well, wait a minute.
That was
So
a
then the next
confusion
day,
on my part. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay, because we did watch.
That's my.
I said, I feel like even though this is that now, I think we need to watch them anyway.
No, so did
yeah.
you watch these as well?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. I
No,
mean,
we got, now see, the group, that's the confusion, because that first one was not ours, it was yours, right?
Yeah.
That one was,
Yeah.
yeah. And that one,
Yeah, I know.
And it wasn't just the words, I felt like he went really fast.
He did.
And
yeah.
like the slang language wasn't slang language everybody understood.
Yeah.
So I have yeah.
So actually, like some of the terms that he used, Isaiah and Shakira, well, Isaiah mentioned that, because I was like, okay, there was something he said, like, I'm gonna talk to you about we separating wheat from chaff with the Crucible. And I said, Isaiah, what does that mean, separating fact from fiction? And he was just like, yeah. I was like, is that something that, you know, you say? It's like, do you use those words? He was like, no. He was
I
like,
never even heard
I
that
know. He
before.
was like, that's what the old heads say.
Oh,
So that's like a really old,
Okay.
this really old terminology. But they laughed about it. They thought it was funny. So I was like, okay, so it's
At least it pulled them in. It pulled them in to go, wait, what's next?
Yeah. But no, I mean, I'm glad you watched it. Like
I watched it for myself.
Okay,
But
yeah.
then they did not watch that one, but we did watch
Okay.
the other ones we were supposed to watch.
Okay, good. All right, so that's fine. But basically, you know, I would say in terms of the data we've gathered, you know, they were able to understand it like on a surface level for the most part.
Yeah.
And
I think it was worth doing for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
so let's look at, so it's like data is gathered by teacher or coach in class or while viewing video on teacher's implementation of the practice, usually on the previously viewed checklist. So in terms of the checklist for the jigsaw method, we did divide the students into groups, and we did do the high-low method grouping, and segment the learning into equal chunks. So we did that. We were able to, you know, give them the videos, and then we talked about it. So we divided everything up step by step. Provide enough time for students to read and reread their material. So instead of reading, we obviously did the videos, but we gave them plenty of time.
That was a much better way to do it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think the videos are good. It's interesting though how even videos can be so cognitively demanding.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
yes,
it's
but
like
that was the lesser of the two. So
yes,
I
yeah.
try to imagine the reading, how that would have gone, even though not necessarily reading it themselves, but even having it read to them.
Yeah, because if I look at like the transcripts for What is McCarthyism, this reads like a college level text.
Yeah, it does.
You know, so
and you don't realize until
yeah. And until you start working with them, you don't realize the discrepancy between like their reading level and like this level of text. So it's really challenging to try to find materials that apply to this subject but that are on a lower level. So yeah.
And I know that this seems like, oh, this is so doable.
Yeah.
Easy to
yeah, it was still very challenging.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it was worth doing, and I think they got, you know, some got more out of it than others, but you can't go much like
I know.
Get something third grade, like no, we're not gonna get something for third grade, like you know what I'm saying? I mean,
I'm still recording.
We need to make sure that we, you know, at least attempt.
Yeah. So one thing I might like either before you go out or when you come back, and it'll be like February or something. Basically, like I was thinking we could look for. I know Newsella does lower level.
I'm tying that into the STAR testing.
Okay.
I'm working on that right now. So
Okay.
I'm trying to
so
figure
that
that
might
out.
be a good place if we were to do something like this again. Like, but I like the videos. It's just still like, how can we break the videos down? Like, I think if I had more time, or if we had more, and it's just always finding the time for planning, but if we had more time for planning the actual delivery of the instruction, we could maybe next time take the videos and do like an Ed Puzzle. Have you used Ed Puzzle before? So Ed Puzzle is where you have a YouTube video, but it embeds questions in the video.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so like for example,
I've never made one, but I have. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I've
this
seen
one's
one.
about Islam, and
Hi there, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course Focus.
and then every few minutes, and you get to put the questions in yourself, like, and so it's almost like immediate recall. So it delivers the information, but then it asks them a question to reinforce that most important topic or like concept that they need to understand.
Okay.
So looking back on it, I'm like, man, we should have done Ed Puzzles. We could have even done the Ed Puzzles instead of these paper activities. But I also I'd like to have a balance between paper. I don't want everything to be digital all the time.
Right, well, then some of them, and then also you have to go back to some of them, that's in their IEP.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
And like even this one right here, that's all in her IEP.
Yes.
But she did okay.
Yeah, and she did. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm super impressed
Yeah.
with that level of output. I mean, I think I'm actually more impressed with that group than the higher group. Like, so the higher
And the
group.
thing is, there was nobody in my group that distracts each other for the most part. They were more
Okay,
focused.
okay,
right?
that's a big
They're more
difference
focused.
because Isaiah and Shakira were definitely, pinging off of each other, and then you have Musa who is just like laying his head down. So it was definitely more of a struggle keeping the higher group engaged, which I'm so happy to hear that the lower group was engaged.
I know,
and
they were.
They obviously,
Yeah, I mean,
they understood it.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to do that.
I didn't write anything down for them, they wrote it all themselves.
That's awesome. That's so funny how the higher kids had less engagement and it was more challenging for
Less
them.
engagement, yeah.
But that's so, because I think the ultimate goal was to increase engagement, I think you met that goal. I don't think the higher group necessarily did as much, I mean, I was able to pull them and pull them in sporadically, but not consistently
Yeah.
through the
And that's
times
the
I
key,
met with
trying to
them.
figure